My daughter-in-law handed me a real estate contract and said it was a great opportunity. $450,000 for my house, above market value, she said. I could move into a nice assisted living facility near them. I read through the contract carefully, the way 30 years of teaching had trained me. Then I found it on page 2, paragraph 7, in smaller font. Seller agrees to vacate property within 60 days and leave all fixtures and fittings. 60 days to leave the house my late husband and I built 30 years ago. The house where I'd raised my son, where I'd spent 8 years watching my grandchildren, every single weekend. 20,000 hours of free childcare, worth $160,000. And she wanted to evict me in 2 months. Drop your name and where you're watching from in the comments. I randomly choose from subscribers to feature your name as a character in my stories. Have you or someone you know experienced something similar? After you finish watching, share your story in the comments. Let me start from the beginning 8 years ago when I first said yes. I was 60 years old when my grandson Tyler was born. My son Marcus called me from the hospital, his voice exhausted but happy. Heather, his wife, had just given birth, and they needed help. Could I watch Tyler for the weekend while Heather recovered? Just until she got back on her feet, Marcus said. Of course I said yes. Tyler was my first grandchild, and I would have done anything for him. I'd retired from teaching 3rd grade at Riverside Elementary 2 years earlier. 30 years in the same classroom, the same bulletin boards, the same alphabet chart above the blackboard. I'd loved it. Every September, a new group of 8-year-olds would walk through my door, nervous and excited, and by June they'd leave reading chapter books and solving multiplication problems. I missed their questions, their laughter, the way they'd run up to me on the playground shouting, Mrs. Hayes, watch this. When Tyler was born, I thought maybe I could do it again. Be the person a child ran to, the person who answered questions, the person who made them feel safe. I didn't realize I was trading one classroom for another. Except this time, there was no summer vacation and no paycheck. That first weekend turned into the next weekend and the next. Within 3 months, it became a routine. Every Friday at 5 o'clock, Heather would drop Tyler off at my house. She'd hand me his diaper bag, kiss him on the forehead, and say, "See you Sunday." Then she'd drive away in her silver SUV, off to yoga classes or shopping trips with her friends. The diaper bag was always a mess, bottles unwashed, diapers stuffed in randomly. I'd spend the first hour of every weekend reorganizing it, washing bottles, folding tiny clothes. Heather never noticed. Or if she did, she never thanked me. At first, I told myself it was fine. New mothers are overwhelmed, I thought. She needed the break. But 3 months became 6, and 6 became a year. Tyler was learning to walk now, stumbling across my living room with his arms out for balance. I'd catch him when he fell, soothe him when he cried, celebrate when he took 3 steps without holding on. On Sunday evenings, Heather would arrive to pick him up. Never at 6 like she'd promised. Always closer to 8. Traffic was terrible, she'd say, or I lost track of time. Never sorry. Just explanations. I'd hand Tyler back, his diaper bag freshly packed, his bottles clean, his clothes folded. "See you Friday," Heather would call out, already halfway to her car. No thank you. No acknowledgement of the 48 hours I'd just given her. Just see you Friday, like I was a service she'd subscribed to. 2 years later, Emma was born. Now I had both grandchildren every weekend. Tyler was learning to talk, and Emma was still in diapers. Heather said she needed the help more than ever. Marcus worked long hours as an IT technician, and Heather had just gotten her real estate license. She was building her career, she told me, and these weekend breaks were essential. I watched Tyler learn to ride a tricycle in my driveway. I taught Emma her first words. I celebrated their birthdays, not at parties Heather threw, but quietly on Saturday mornings with pancakes shaped like their favorite animals. 8 years went by like that. Every Friday evening, Heather's SUV pulled into my driveway. Tyler was 8 now, Emma was 6, and I was 68. I'd spent every weekend for the past 8 years cooking their meals, helping with homework, taking them to the park, and putting them to bed in the spare room I'd set up just for them. The room had twin beds with matching quilts I'd sewn myself, a bookshelf filled with stories I'd collected, and a nightlight that cast stars across the ceiling. David and I had planned to make it a guest room, back when we thought we'd have friends visiting in our retirement. Instead, it became Tyler and Emma's room. I calculated it once, late one night when I couldn't sleep. 8 years, 52 weekends a year, roughly 48 hours each weekend. That was nearly 20,000 hours of childcare. If I'd been paid the going rate for a babysitter, it would have been worth over $160,000. But I'd never asked for a cent because they were my grandchildren and I loved them. Still, something had started to change in the past few months. Heather's visits became shorter, her thank yous more perfunctory. Actually, there were no thank yous anymore. Just see you Sunday and the sound of her car pulling away. One Sunday evening when she came to pick up the kids, she stood in my living room and looked around with an expression I couldn't quite read. Her eyes swept over the furniture David and I had chosen together 30 years ago, the photographs on the mantel, the curtains I'd made by hand. "This house is really too big for you, Beatrice," she said. I looked up from helping Emma tie her shoes. "I like the space," I replied, surprised by the comment. "David and I built this house together." "I know," Heather said, but she wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the crown molding, the hardwood floors, the bay window that overlooked the garden. "But you should think about downsizing. It's a lot of maintenance for one person." Her tone felt off. Not concerned, but calculating, like she was appraising the value of each room. "I'm managing just fine," I said. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Well, just something to think about," she said, and then she gathered up Tyler and Emma and left. That conversation stuck with me. I kept replaying it in my mind, trying to understand why it bothered me so much. Heather had never shown interest in my living situation before. Why now? And why did she look at my house like a real estate agent pricing a listing? 3 weeks later, I got my answer. It was a Friday afternoon, and I was getting ready to pick up the kids when my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, a man in a navy suit stood on my porch holding a clipboard. "Hi, I'm here for the 3 o'clock appointment," he said with a professional smile. "Market valuation?" My stomach dropped. "I'm sorry," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I didn't make an appointment." He checked his clipboard, confusion crossing his face. "This is 428 Oakwood Drive, right? Heather Hayes requested a market estimate." The words hit me like cold water. Heather had scheduled someone to appraise my house without asking me, without even mentioning it. "There's been a mistake," I said, my hands gripping the doorframe. "I'm not interested in selling." "Oh," the man said, looking uncomfortable now. "I apologize. Heather said you were considering downsizing." "She was mistaken," I said firmly. He apologized again and left, but I stood in my doorway for a long moment after he drove away. My hands are trembling, not from cold, but from something I can't quite name yet. Anger, fear, betrayal. I pulled out my phone and called Heather immediately. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Beatrice, I was just about to leave to drop off the kids." "Why was there a real estate agent at my house?" I asked. No preamble, no small talk. There was a pause. "Oh, that," Heather said, her tone light and dismissive. "I was just getting a rough idea of the market, for planning purposes." "Planning what, Heather?" "Nothing specific," she said, and I could hear her moving around, probably packing the kids' bags. "Just options, in case you ever want to move somewhere more manageable." "I don't want to move," I said. "I know, but you're not getting any younger," she replied. Her voice had that false concern, syrup sweet and utterly hollow. What if you fall? What if you can't manage the stairs? I'm just trying to be helpful, Beatrice. If you want to help, ask me before you schedule people to come to my house, I said. Fine, Heather said, and now I could hear the irritation creeping into her voice. I'm sorry. I thought I was doing you a favor. She wasn't sorry. She was annoyed that I'd found out. She didn't apologize. She explained, as if I were the unreasonable one for being upset that she'd invaded my privacy. That evening, my neighbor Mrs. Patel came over. She was 65, a retired nurse with sharp eyes and a kind heart. We'd lived next door to each other for nearly 20 years. Beatrice, I saw a real estate agent at your house today, she said, settling into the chair across from me. Are you selling? No, I said. Heather called him without telling me. Mrs. Patel's expression shifted, concern deepening in the lines around her eyes. That's odd. Has she done things like this before? I thought back. 6 months ago, Heather had left pamphlets about home health aids on my kitchen counter. Just in case you ever need them, she'd said. 3 months ago, she'd suggested I tour some assisted living facilities near her neighborhood. They have great amenities, she told me. And you'd be closer to us. At the time, I dismissed it as concern. Maybe a little overbearing, but well-intentioned. Now I wasn't sure. You should be careful, Beatrice, Mrs. Patel said quietly. I've seen this before in my nursing days. Family members who start pushing elderly relatives to downsize usually have their own reasons. What kind of reasons? I asked, though part of me already knew. Financial ones, Mrs. Patel said. Your house is worth a lot of money, and Heather drives a brand new SUV, wears designer clothes. I've wondered if she can actually afford that lifestyle. I didn't want to believe it. Heather was family. She was Marcus's wife, Tyler and Emma's mother. But Mrs. Patel's words planted a seed of doubt. The next morning, I called Richard Chen. He was 70, a retired real estate attorney, and the husband of my former teaching colleague, Linda. I explained everything that had happened over coffee in his office downtown. He listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. Let me ask you something, Richard said when I finished. Is your house in your name? Yes, completely, I said. David passed away 15 years ago, and I had it transferred to my name. The mortgage is paid off. Good, Richard said, nodding. That means Heather has no legal right to sell it, but if she's pushing you to downsize, she might be planning something else. Like what? I asked. Power of attorney, guardianship, or trying to prove you're incompetent, Richard said. His words were matter-of-fact, clinical, but they landed like punches. Incompetent? I said, shocked. I'm a retired teacher. I manage my own finances. I volunteer at the library every Tuesday. How could anyone think I'm incompetent? They don't have to think it, Richard said gently. They just have to make a court believe it. And if they succeed, they can control your assets, including your house. The weight of his words settled over me like a cold blanket. I felt my chest tighten, my breath shallow. Document everything, Richard advised. Every conversation, every visit, every request. Use your phone's voice memo app for conversations with Heather. In Oregon, you can record conversations you're part of without telling the other person, and be careful what you sign. I went home and took out a notebook. On the first page, I wrote record of events in my teacher's handwriting, neat and precise. Then I began documenting everything I could remember about the past 6 months. The pamphlets about home health aids. The suggestion to tour assisted living facilities. The real estate agent. Every late pickup, every see you Sunday without a thank you. I also started a Google Doc titled Family Interactions Private. Cloud storage meant even if someone took my phone, the evidence would survive. I backed it up with handwritten notes, dated and signed. Old-fashioned, but lawyers love paper trails. 2 weeks later, on a Sunday evening, Heather arrived to pick up the kids. But this time, she had a folder with her. Beatrice, I've been thinking, she said as Tyler and Emma gathered their things upstairs. She set the folder on my kitchen table. Just as a precaution, it might be good for you to sign this. She pulled out a document and placed it in front of me. At the top, it read, Power of Attorney. My heart started pounding, but I kept my face calm. What is it? I asked, even though I already knew. It just means that if something happens to you, if you get sick or have an accident, Marcus and I can help manage things, Heather explained. She said it so casually, like she was asking me to sign a birthday card. I picked up the document and read it carefully. 30 years of teaching had trained me to read every word of a contract, to look for what wasn't being said. This wasn't just about helping in an emergency. With this power of attorney, Heather could access my bank accounts, make medical decisions for me, and yes, sell my house. I need to think about it, I said. Think about it? Heather's face tightened for just a moment before smoothing into concern again. Beatrice, this is for your own good. It's standard. Everyone does it. Then I'll discuss it with my own lawyer first, I replied. Your lawyer? Heather said, and her voice sharpened. Why do you need a lawyer? We're family, Beatrice. Family doesn't need lawyers. She made it sound reasonable, like I was the one being paranoid. I trust myself, Heather, I said quietly but firmly. And I'll sign nothing without understanding it completely. Her eyes narrowed, just for a second. Then the smile was back, tight and forced. Fine, she said. It don't take too long. We're just trying to protect you. From what? I asked. The question hung in the air between us. From making mistakes, Heather said. From being taken advantage of? By who? I asked. You? Her face flushed. That's not fair, Beatrice. Neither is asking me to sign this without explaining it fully, I said. Don't you trust us? Heather asked, and there it was. The guilt trip, the emotional manipulation. I trust myself, I repeated. She left without another word, taking Tyler and Emma with her. That night, Marcus called. Mom, Heather says you don't trust us, he said, sounding hurt. Marcus, do you know what a power of attorney means? I asked. Heather said it's just in case something happens to you. It means she can sell my house without my permission, I said. Is that what you want? There was a long silence. No, of course not, Marcus finally said. Then ask her why she's pushing so hard. After we hung up, I couldn't sleep. I went out to the garden, standing under the cherry tree David had planted 30 years ago when we'd first moved into this house. We'd been married for 25 years when he passed. Every morning, we'd have coffee together in the kitchen before he left for work. He was an accountant, meticulous and quiet, and he'd always check the weather forecast before kissing me goodbye. Be careful driving, I'd say. Always am, he'd reply, even though I knew he drove 5 miles under the speed limit. On weekends, we'd work in the garden together. He'd plant, I'd weed. He'd talk about compound interest, I'd talk about lesson plans. It was boring and perfect. This house, this garden, this cherry tree, it was ours. Not just David's and mine. It was the house where Marcus took his first steps, where we hosted Thanksgiving dinners for 20 years, where David and I planned to grow old together. David never got to meet Tyler or Emma, but he'd built this place for them. I placed my hand on the rough bark, feeling the grooves David and I had watched deepen over 30 years. I heard David's voice in my head, not a memory but the feeling of what he would say. Don't let them take our home, Bea. We built this together. It's yours. I stood there, my hand on the tree, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to let Heather take this house. Not through manipulation, not through legal tricks, not at all. I was going to fight back, but not with anger. With strategy. I remembered something else about Heather, something from 10 years ago when she first joined our family. She'd brought me a handwritten birthday card that said, "You're the mom I never had. I'm so grateful to be part of this family." She'd also given me gardening gloves, inexpensive but thoughtful, because she knew I loved working in the garden with David's cherry tree. That Heather felt like a lifetime ago. Where did that kindness go? When did I become someone to exploit instead of someone to love? The next morning, I called Richard again. "Richard, I need your help," I said. Not just legal advice, a plan. We met at his office and I explained what had happened with the power of attorney. "If Heather is planning to sell your house, she'll need you to sign something eventually," Richard said. "A contract, a deed transfer, something. And if you refuse, she might try to get guardianship, claim you're incompetent," Richard said. "But that takes time and evidence. She'll likely try the easier route first, getting you to sign voluntarily." I took a breath. "What if I did sign?" I asked. Richard looked at me in surprise. What if I let her think she's winning?" I said. "Let her bring me a contract and I sign it, but with a witness who knows I'm being coerced." "A notary public," Richard said, understanding dawning on his face. "If you state on record that you're signing under duress, the contract is void and you'd have evidence of fraud." "Exactly," I said. "This is risky, Beatrice," Richard warned. "You're giving her exactly what she wants, temporarily. If something goes wrong, you could lose your house." "I won't let that happen," I said. "I have 8 years of evidence. I have witnesses. I have you. And I have the truth." Richard studied me for a long moment. "You sound like a prosecutor building a case." "I spent 3 decades teaching children to question everything, to look for what wasn't being said," I replied. "Now I'm using those same skills on my own daughter-in-law." 2 weeks later, Heather showed up at my door unannounced. "Beatrice, I have great news," she said, practically bouncing with excitement. Her eyes are gleaming, and I can see it now. The calculation, the greed. "What is it?" I asked, keeping my face calm even though my heart is pounding. "I found a buyer for your house," she announced. "I didn't put my house on the market," I said. "I know, but I've been quietly looking into options for you," Heather said. "And I found someone willing to pay $450,000. That's above market value, Beatrice." $450,000. She said it like she was doing me a favor, like she'd won me the lottery. "Heather, I never asked you to do this," I said. "I know it's a big decision," she continued, ignoring me completely. "But think about it. You could move into a nice condo, no yard work, no maintenance, and you'd have money left over." "Where would I move?" I asked. "There's a lovely assisted living facility near us," Heather said. "You could see the kids more often." "You've already looked into assisted living?" I asked. "Just as an option," she said quickly. "Come on, Beatrice. This is a great opportunity. Think of what you could do with that money." What I could do. Not what we could do. Not what was best for me. What she wanted me to do with money from selling my home. She pulled out a real estate purchase agreement. The paper felt heavy in my hands. Expensive stock, professionally printed. I scanned the first page. The buyer was listed as Greenwood Properties, LLC. I didn't recognize the name. Purchase price, $450,000. Closing date, 30 days from signing. Then I turned to page 2, and that's where I found it. Paragraph 7, subsection C, in font smaller than the rest. Seller agrees to vacate property within 60 days of closing and leave all fixtures, fittings, and permanent improvements. My stomach dropped. Vacate. 60 days. She wasn't helping me downsize. She was evicting me from my own home. I read it again, slower, making sure I understood. David and I had built this house 30 years ago. We'd chosen every fixture, every fitting, every piece of crown molding. And Heather wanted me to leave it all behind in 2 months. I looked up at her. "Can I think about this overnight?" I asked, as if considering it. "Actually, the buyer needs an answer soon," Heather said. "There's a notary available tomorrow at 2 p.m. I can pick you up." She was rushing me, creating urgency, pressure. Classic sales tactics. I took a slow breath. "Okay, Heather," I said. "Let's do it." Her eyes widened, surprise and triumph, flashing across her face. "Really? Oh, Beatrice, you're making the right choice. You won't regret this." "I hope not," I said. The next day at 2:00, Heather drove me to Evergreen Notary Services. The office smelled of old carpet and air freshener. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Heather kept checking her watch, tapping her foot against the metal chair leg, a nervous rhythm that echoed in the small room. The notary, Ms. Linda Reyes, was a woman in her 50s with a no-nonsense demeanor and reading glasses on a chain. "Good afternoon," she said. "I'll need to see both your IDs and verify that you understand this document." She reviewed the contract carefully, running her finger along each page. "Mrs. Hayes, do you understand that by signing this, you are agreeing to sell your property at 428 Oakwood Drive for $450,000? "I understand," I said. "And are you signing this of your own free will?" I looked at the notary, then at Heather, then back at the notary. This was it. The moment Richard and I had planned. "I want it on record," I said clearly and calmly. "I'm signing this under duress. My daughter-in-law has been pressuring me for months to sell my home. I don't want to sell, but she says if I don't, I'll never see my grandchildren again." Ms. Reyes put down her pen. "I'm sorry, what?" Heather's face went white. "Beatrice, that's not true," she said, her voice cracking. She scheduled real estate agents without my knowledge," I continued. "She brought me power of attorney forms. She's been telling people I'm losing my memory, and now she wants me to sign this contract to sell my home and move into assisted living within 60 days. "Mrs. Hayes, if you're signing under duress, I cannot notarize this document," Ms. Reyes said. "But I want to sign it," I said. "I want there to be a record that she tried to make me do this." I signed my name slowly and clearly. Beatrice L. Hayes. Then I pulled out my phone and dialed Richard's number. "Richard," I said. "It's done. She made me sign." "Who are you calling?" Heather demanded, panic rising in her voice. "Beatrice, hang up. This is—" "Ma'am, I need you to step back," Ms. Reyes said firmly. "I'm calling my supervisor about this situation." 1 week later, we sat in Richard's office. Heather, Marcus, Richard, and I. The air was thick with tension. Richard laid out the documents on the table, one by one, like a prosecutor building a case. First, Richard said, "Mrs. Patel's sworn affidavit. She's witnessed 8 years of weekend babysitting, every Friday to Sunday, without fail." Heather shifted in her seat. "That doesn't prove anything. Beatrice wanted to spend time with the kids." Second, Richard continued, babysitting records, 48 hours per weekend, 52 weeks a year, 8 years. At the going rate of $20 per hour, that's $160,000 of unpaid labor. Heather's face went pale. Marcus's head snapped up. $160,000? Third, your credit card statements, Richard said, sliding another document across the table. $45,000 in debt. What? Marcus said, turning to Heather. I can explain, Heather started. Fourth, Richard cut her off. Text messages between you and Greenwood Properties, LLC. The buyer you claimed was a stranger? It's owned by your college roommate, Jennifer Morris. Heather's mouth opened, then closed. No words came out. And finally, Richard said, the notarized statement from Ms. Reyes confirming that Beatrice signed under duress. He looked at Heather. This contract is void, and you are facing potential charges of elder financial abuse and fraud. I was just trying to help, Heather said, her voice shaking now. We're drowning in debt. I was just... Help yourself, I said, my voice cold and steady. Heather turned to me, tears forming in her eyes. You have this huge house and you're all alone, she cried. Why shouldn't we benefit from it? We've taken care of you for 8 years. Taking care of me. As if I were a burden. As if watching my grandchildren was a favor to me, not free labor for her. "You didn't take care of me," I said. "I took care of your children, for free, for 8 years, while you went shopping and built your career." "Marcus, say something," Heather pleaded. Marcus looked at me, then at Heather, then down at his hands. "Mom, I didn't know it was this bad," he said quietly. "I swear, I thought we were just helping you plan for the future." "Marcus, you knew enough," I said. "You knew she scheduled that real estate agent. You knew about the power of attorney." He couldn't meet my eyes. Richard cleared his throat. "If Beatrice chooses to press charges, both of you could face criminal prosecution. Elder financial abuse carries serious penalties in Oregon." I looked at Heather, at Marcus, at the 8 years of weekends I'd given them. Tyler learning to walk. Emma's first words. 20,000 hours of my life. "I'm not pressing criminal charges," I said. Heather's shoulders sagged with relief. "But I have conditions," I continued. "Heather and Marcus immediately cease all contact regarding my property or finances. Heather publicly withdraws from any involvement in my affairs. I will see Tyler and Emma on my terms, twice a month, scheduled in advance with at least 1 week's notice. If Heather ever attempts anything like this again, I will file charges immediately and pursue full prosecution." "Beatrice, please," Heather begged. "We're family." "Family doesn't lie," I said. "Family doesn't steal. Family asks." They left. Marcus turned back at the door. "Mom, I'm sorry." "I know, Marcus," I said. But sorry isn't enough. 3 months later, spring arrived. The cherry tree in my garden bloomed, its pink flowers drifting in the breeze. I heard through Mrs. Patel that Heather's real estate license had been suspended. 6 months for ethical violations. The real estate board had found irregularities in other transactions too. Clients who'd felt pressured, contracts signed under questionable circumstances. Word spread fast in a small community. Heather lost clients, lost credibility, and lost the one thing she cared about most, her reputation. Marcus had filed for separation. He'd moved into an apartment downtown and started therapy. "I should have seen it," he told me during one of our monthly coffee meetings. "I should have protected you." Tyler and Emma visited twice a month, Saturday afternoons only. And those Saturday afternoons were better than all the forced weekends because I wanted to be there and they wanted to be there. No obligation, no exploitation. Just love. I stood in my kitchen one Saturday morning, making breakfast, looking out at the cherry tree David had planted 30 years ago. This house, with its memories and its garden and its quiet rooms, was still mine. Nobody had taken it. I looked at Marcus and saw the boy he used to be. The boy who'd bring me dandelions from the yard and call them flowers. The boy who'd fallen off his bike and cried in my arms for 20 minutes. The boy who'd hugged me so tight on his first day of college that I thought he'd never let go. That boy was still in there somewhere. But the man sitting across from me had chosen his wife's greed over his mother's home, and that was a choice I couldn't forgive. Not yet. Maybe someday. Looking back, I learned something I wish I'd known earlier. Saying yes doesn't make you a good grandmother. Setting boundaries does. If someone is pressuring you to sign documents about your house, your money, your life, stop. Ask questions, get a second opinion, document everything. And if they say it's just in case, or we're trying to help, remember that real help doesn't require you to give up control. I also learned about something called Adult Protective Services. If someone is exploiting you financially or pressuring you to sign away your rights, call them. You don't have to fight alone. 8 years is a long time to give away, but it's never too late to take your life back. Resources matter, but the most important thing I learned is this: trust, but verify. Even with family, especially with family. If you were in my position, what would you have done? Have you experienced something similar with your own family? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe. Your support helps me continue sharing these stories, and you never know. Your name might appear as a character in my next one. I took a sip of coffee. The cherry blossoms drifted past the window. Tyler laughed in the garden, and Emma called out, "Grandma, come see." I set down my cup and walked outside, into the spring sunlight, into my garden, in my home. And I was home.